We're going to go in the cantina with NASCAR driver Ryan Blaney.
Hello.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey.
Hey, it's Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack with Rebel Force Radio. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Great to speak with you.
Yeah, you too.
I think you have a distinction here. You're the very first NASCAR driver we have ever had on one of our podcasts in 10 years. I think it's about time.
Oh, well, good. Good. Nice. I can help break that streak of not having anybody on the show. So that's good.
Well, we're glad
Well,
to
hey,
have you.
you know what? But thanks for joining us, Ryan. We were talking earlier in the show about what a huge Star Wars fan you are. Was there ever any sort of influence Star Wars had on your decision to go after racing as a career? I know racing is obviously very huge in your family. Your dad, Dave Blaney, was a NASCAR driver, a legendary driver for years, and you've definitely taken a ball and run with it, so to speak. But was there anything about Star Wars that attracted you to the world of high, fast speed and everything? Because George Lucas, obviously, when he created Star Wars, he always worked under the mantra faster, more intense. And NASCAR is definitely faster and more intense. So do you find that there's some sort of connection between your love of racing and your love of Star Wars?
That's tough to kind of compare the two. I got into racing really because my family was in it. I grew up at the racetrack with my dad and everything like that. So that's really all I knew. But, I thought, so when I was growing up, the first Star Wars movie that I ever saw, just because it was kind of my time period, was number 1, episode 1. When Anakin was, in the pod racing and everything like that. And that was kind of cool. I really enjoyed watching that scene just because I was young and it's something neat to me. And I raced, and they had racing on here, and I was intrigued with the Star Wars movies. And I was at a young age at that time when I saw that, and I thought that was really neat. So that was a relatable thing, but really just because it was in the family is how I got started in it.
Ryan, did you become aware then, as a Star Wars fan, how much of a car and race enthusiast George Lucas is?
Yeah, well, as I watched it, Star Wars more and more, you always see, different types of vehicles and things like that. And you said it perfectly a little bit ago. You always kind of wanted faster and more speed and things like that. And that's what NASCAR is all about too. So I didn't know he was a huge, fan of, speed and cars, before those movies. And that was a neat fact, that we learned out, I think, as he was developing those films.
I'm surprised that maybe you've not ever seen him walking around the tracks, in your career and your dad's career.
Me too.
Because I know he does.
Me too.
I know Indy racing in particular. He's a big.
He loves the Formula One, unfortunately.
Is that it?
Yeah, he needs to support stock car racing, American stock car racing, but he's always flying over to Monaco to go watch some Grand Prix or something.
Oh, that stuff isn't any good. He needs to make it out to a NASCAR race. We'll show him the good stuff.
Absolutely.
There was, if I remember right, there have been a number of Star Wars cars. Certainly for episode 1, I think it was Jeff Gordon was the driver for that car.
John Andretti drove the number 43 for Richard Petty. That was episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have a replica of that. And Jeff Gordon drove the number 24. That was for Ep 3.
No, that was Ep 1.
That was Ep 1?
Yeah,
no, because Yoda had the lightsaber. That was clearly Ep 3.
Well, while we figure that out, maybe there will be a Last Jedi car, Episode 8 car that could be driven by Ryan.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Let's try to make that happen. I'm excited for The Last Jedi. It should be a good one.
Well, you made some headlines, Ryan, because as you mentioned, first Star Wars movie you saw in the theaters was Episode 1, but when you were on the buzzers with Daryl Mahdi, and Daryl kind of was teasing you a little bit, at least, well, not to your face. He waited until after, and then he made some a remark about, geez, has he seen Star Wars? He thinks Episode 1 is the best, but you were, 6 years old when that came out?
Yeah, I was young. I was super young. So it was really this time period of when I was old enough to kind of understand them and when they came out. So, they were huge when I came out. When 1 through 3, and I was at that age to where I was fascinated by it. And then, I eventually saw.
Now,
the
who
rest
took
of
you
them,
to
the
see
originals.
who took you to see your first Star Wars movie, Episode 1?
Oh, I can't remember. It was a while back. I believe me and my mom went.
Yeah.
My mother took me. She was always taking me to movies when I was younger, and she would enjoy taking me if I begged her enough. But
Yeah.
he was giving me a hard time about like in Episode 1. You got to know it's the time I grew up. People kind of dog on it pretty bad just because Jar Jar and things like that. But you have to admit that it has one of the best lightsaber battles ever.
Absolutely.
No
with
doubt.
Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and then Darth Maul. Darth Maul is one of my favorite dark side characters. And it's one of the coolest battles. And I thought they did a great job of that. That's one of the reasons why it's at pretty high up on my list.
Well, I tell you, what, Ryan, you're in a safe place here because we're not going to. You could say that your favorite Star Wars movie was the Clone Wars movie, right? Nothing against that, but you could say, and
Right.
you're in a place. No, we're not going to judge you. We're not going to judge you. It's all Star Wars to us.
Yeah, there's so many judgmental people out there. I just enjoy the franchise.
Yeah.
It's nice.
There you go. And of course, Episode 1 had a big impact on you as a kid, but also keep in mind for us older fans like Swank, it was the return of Star Wars to the theater. So it had this cultural impact that was it really has not been replicated. I don't even think with The Force Awakens. It didn't have that cultural impact that the return to Star Wars to theaters with Episode 1 had. So it definitely had a huge impact on me as just a Star Wars fan. And I happen to like the movie too. And as Swank says, you're in the right place to say it loud and say it proud if you like Star Wars Episode 1. So obviously you like Darth Maul, you like the pod racing, but let's just talk about Star Wars in general terms and discuss what always brings you back to Star Wars. What keeps you coming back for more?
I just enjoy the kind of the fantasy of it. Like what they're going to do next, and the anticipation for Episode 8 is through the roof. There's so many things kind of hanging right now of who's Snoke and what's going to happen and what's Luke's relation to Rey and everything like that. But that's what you're kind of hanging on right now. And what the anticipation level is really high. But what makes me come back is just something I enjoyed as a kid, and it's a pretty awesome thing to think about. And I think either you're a huge fan of it or you don't like it at all. I haven't met anyone that's like, I think Star Wars is okay. It's just that if you like it, you always come back to it, and it's just kind of the thing as a kid. I would mess around in my yard as a kid and pretend I had force powers and play with my lightsaber and stuff like that with bushes and fight the dog and stuff like that. So
fight the dog.
I like to think there are two types of people in this world. There's those who love Star Wars and those who haven't seen it. So that's pretty much it.
That's yeah. There's a lot of people who haven't seen it, and those are usually people who say they don't like it and haven't even given it a chance.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But it is pretty rare. I mean, you got Rogue One, which was the one that was going out. It was untested. It was the underdog, and here it is already in the top 10 films of all time. I mean, a pretty amazing story that even a non what you would consider saga film is able to go out there and draw a lot of people. And I know you were recently on again with Buzzers and Daryl Mahdi, and you were talking about Rogue One, but it being the most current Star Wars film, what was your favorite part? I think I know what you're going to say.
Oh, man, let me first of all say I think Rogue One was, it's definitely up there as one of my favorite films. They did a great job of kind of piecing together the start of A New Hope, where they're like, all right, well, how did she get the Death Star plans? And they did a good job of showing what all it took. It was like an old, gritty war movie, which I thought was really cool how they did that. And everybody sacrifices themselves just to get these plans. But my favorite scene was the last one, where Darth is just destroying dudes and just going at it. It was pretty unbelievable. I've seen the movie 4 times, and every time it gets cooler and cooler, that last scene. So that's one of my favorite scenes by far. It's hard to beat that. That's almost one of the best scenes in the whole Star Wars franchise, to be honest with you.
It kind of gives us something we've always wanted to see, just pure unbridled anger and aggression coming from Darth Vader directed toward rebels, just cutting them all down. I kind of thought we'd see Vader do some of that when the Empire invaded the base on Hoth in Empire Strikes Back, but he just sort of strode in behind his snowtroopers and let them do all the business.
Yeah.
And maybe that might have even been considered a little too dark for something to put into a film back in 1980. But audiences for the year 2016, 2017, we can accept a Darth Vader that's just brutal and angry and unforgiving like that. I was very happy to see it. Hey, as far as The Force Awakens goes, you talked about some of the fun things that there are out there for us to speculate between films, most notably, who is Snoke? Who do you think Snoke is?
Oh, man, there's so many rumors and fan theories and stuff, of like the most recent one I saw that made me laugh was like, oh, it's Mace Windu. He didn't die or something like that. And then he turned to the dark side. I'm like, I don't know if I believe that one, to be honest with you. I think he's a new character. I think he's kind of new. There was a while they thought it was Vader. That was Snoke. But I think he's going to be someone new. I don't think they're going to tie him in to anybody previously. So I think it'll be a new character we haven't seen in the movies, which would be nice. I was kind of skeptical when when they had him in The Force Awakens as a gigantic human being. Hopefully he's not like giant and animated too much. I hope he's normal size and you kind of get that vibe from him. So hopefully be good. But I think he's going to be a new character. I'm excited to see what role he's going to play here in The Last Jedi.
I'm with you on that one, Ryan. I think he's a new character, and I think his backstory is going to be something really interesting to hear about. Now, you mentioned Rey, and what's her relationship? Do you think she's a Skywalker? What do you think about Rey?
There's a lot of people, who think she is a Skywalker, and a lot of people who think, she's she was kind of more of a Vader. There's people out there thinking like she's going to turn to the dark side, all that stuff. But I don't know. I think I think she's a Skywalker, to be honest with you. Luke's lightsaber talked to her, and I think why would it do that if she wasn't related to him or Luke's daughter? So I'm going with that. She is a Skywalker, and
or she could be a Kenobi. That's the other. That's the other big theory.
Yeah, that's something else. Yeah, that'd be nice. I think that would be a pretty logical. But you think though of how old Kenobi was, in the originals and how young Luke was, and she doesn't really. What they say, she was 18 or 19 in The Force Awakens. So that to me is kind of the only way I'm kind of, thinking that she's not Obi-Wan's daughter, or maybe Obi-Wan had other kids. And then
they're thinking that maybe it could be a granddaughter too. Who knows? But hey, Charlie Chaplin had babies in his 80s, but clearly the man was cut down before he could have had. Unless those Force ghosts are a lot more corporeal than we
never know.
Realize I don't know how much power they have.
So Ryan, would you be disappointed if she turned out to be just her own character and not a Skywalker?
No, I wouldn't be disappointed. I think she would be important no matter what. If she was related to a big name in the franchise, or if she was just a new character like Snoke would be, or something like that. So, I think I wouldn't be disappointed either way. I'm just kind of curious of where she came from. I think it is interesting. Hopefully they'll give us more backstories on these characters in the next one. I think they will. I want to know about, I want to know more about Kylo. I want to know where, what all went wrong with him and everything like that. So I think they'll give more backstories, where everyone came from, what happened to everybody. And that's something I'm really excited for too.
Ryan, can we go back in time a little bit? I'm always interested in people's stories and how they became fans. And, you said that your mom, you think, took you to see Episode 1 back in 1999, and you were 6 years old, which happens to be the same age I was when I saw my first Star Wars movie in the theater, which was Return of the Jedi. And it can have a tremendous impact on you. And I had kind of an unconventional, story. I ended up seeing Return of the Jedi, and then I saw A New Hope, and then I saw Empire Strikes Back. So I was really confused. But for you, were you snacking on the original films in between the releases of the prequels, or did you just see episodes 1, 2, and 3 as they came out, and then decided to go back as you were a little older and see the originals? Do you remember kind of how that happened for you.
Yeah, so I saw 1, 2, and 3, and then I watched 4, 5, 6. So I watched them kind of all in order as they would be story of Star Wars. So I didn't kind of dabble in 4, 5, and 6 until after I saw the third one.
That is very responsible of you.
Well, I figured that when I was I'm gonna be honest with you, after like 1 came out, I was so young. Yeah. I didn't know there was a 4, 5, or 6. Oh, I was 6 years old. I didn't know. And then after the Clone Wars came out, I was like, oh wait, there's 4, 5, and 6, but I don't want to skip ahead and cheat. I kind of want to know 3 first. So that's I watched them all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that order.
I think you're the first person we've ever had on the show who actually was introduced to the saga in the order that George Lucas prefers people to watch it in. Because most people we talk to have seen the original trilogy first. I really don't think that there's anyone we've ever had on the show who's actually watched the prequel trilogy in its completion prior to watching the original trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, the surprises were great that way, to be honest with you. So that way I thought was a good way. And I just, lucky that it was the time, everything kind of lined up. The timing of I was young came out, and then as I got older, I learned more about it, and I wanted to watch them in that order. So that worked.
How do you react to the way the pseudo romance between Luke and Leia starts unfolding in episode 4 and 5 when they're brother and sister?
Yeah, well, that was a little weird. You're like, these two are related, and obviously they don't know that at the time until a little bit later. But it's a little different. But it was nice to kind of know something before that movie that the characters didn't know. So that was kind of weird, but it was definitely an interesting thing to know at an age like that.
Now, did the Clone Wars animated series did that play into your growing up as a Star Wars fan? Did you get into that at all?
I couldn't. I used to try to get into it when I was a little bit younger, and I could just never really get into it. The Clone Wars was never something I had a huge interest in. The animated show, I see a little bit about it. Pay attention to it a little bit nowadays. If I see clips, I'll look it up. But just something I never got into. I think it'd be nice because there's some storylines in there.
There's some
that
great
I think
stuff in there,
tie in.
Truly, especially if you do love that era of the prequels and the story of the Jedi there in their final days, is some really, really, really good stuff. You should give it a look-see.
Yeah.
Especially if you love Darth Maul so much, Ryan. I'm telling you,
he comes back.
Yeah, he comes back, and it's some really compelling stuff. So I know you're sitting around in your trailer sometimes waiting for qualifying or practice laps or whatever. Why don't you fire it up? Hey, speaking of which, do you listen to the soundtrack music from Star Wars?
No, I don't. No. I haven't gotten into the soundtrack.
Because I was wondering if you ever have the opportunity when you're running laps, either in practice laps, if you have the opportunity to jam music in the car, or do you always have to be listening to your spotter?
Yeah, we're always listening to our spotter. There's really no time to listen to anything.
Yeah.
Other than that, he pumps so much information into us that it's really impossible.
Yeah, I don't think the Wood brothers
highly not good.
I don't think the Wood brothers would appreciate it if you went driving by at about 185 miles an hour on the straightaway and they hear the Imperial March cranking out of the cockpit of the car. They might take a little exception to that.
No, for sure. For sure.
Well, I would do it though if I could. I think talk about faster, more intense.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
But I always wondered that. There's never the opportunity. And then I'm sure I have to ask the question everyone asks you. In the middle of the race and you have to go to the bathroom, what do you do?
Yeah, so I get that question about 5 times a weekend by fans. So it's nice to get back into that trend. I had 3 months off to not get that question. Now I'm back on it.
Yeah, this is warm-up. We're warming you up here for the PD onslaught.
Yeah. So we, me personally, and really all the drivers make sure that they take care of that before the race. you're fluid up all weekend just to make sure you have some hydration for 500 miles or whatever. And I personally have never been in a situation where I have to go in the race car, luckily, and I don't really want to ever be in that situation. But some guys do. There's a handful of people that have done that just because you have to go bad and it's kind of distracting you from what the task at hand is. So you end up giving in and going. But I've never done it, and I don't plan to do it because I'll have to clean it out, and I really don't want to do that. So
now you said task at hand, not task in hand, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I always saw Carl.
It goes both ways.
When Carl Edwards would win a race, he would get up on the door and do a backflip off of his car in the middle of the infield, and I always thought he was doing that just to dry off.
You might actually have a point. You might have had a breakthrough right there.
So, Ryan, you mentioned Darth Maul. Any other Star Wars characters that are really, at the top of your list as favorites?
Darth Maul was one of my favorites. Like I said, I have a few Vader cardboard cutouts and stand-ups in my house. I'm a big Vader fan. That's why I was so excited to see how much of a badass he was in Rogue One. Those two have honestly been some of my favorites. There hasn't really been anyone else that's really stood out.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. All right, Luke or Han?
Luke.
All right.
For sure.
Princess Leia or Padme?
Oof. That's a tough one. I'm going to have to go Padme just because I think she is pretty good looking.
All right.
So,
ObiWan or Yoda?
I like ObiWan. I've always been a Ewan McGregor fan.
All right.
So,
okay.
It was cool.
Jar Jar or Lando?
Lando.
All right.
You can't
Lando's got to be your
Jar.
wingman. And finally, this is going to be a tough one for you, but I think I may know the answer, but let's see. Darth Maul, Darth Vader.
Oh man, you guys! I knew you were going to go there when you said that.
Have to.
That's tough, man.
We
Maul
might see this on Rebels. This showdown might be coming. We don't know. But if you're following the Rebels series, that's another one. I suggest you give it a look because we've got a rematch coming up between what we think is going to be a rematch between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Obi-Wan's roasting wieners out there on the desert. But yeah, so
that's a tough
I'm not going to let you out of this one though. You got to choose.
Oh man, damn it!
You must choose.
All right. You must. I'm gonna go Darth Maul just because when I was growing up, he was the first kind of villain of Star Wars that I saw, and I fell in love with his double-sided lightsaber, and that was really cool to me. I had a handful of them back in the day.
Well, see, I've always been very loyal to the original trilogy, and I find it totally refreshing to have you come on board and tell us about your love and nostalgia. It's more than just nostalgia, I believe you have for episode 1. It definitely is part of your foundation as a fan. And do you keep up with any of the comic books? I know you're a fan of comic books.
Yeah, I have a few. I'm still kind of collecting, but I have a few that have either been passed down to me or I'll pass in a comic book shop. And some of them are older, some of them are a little bit newer. But I enjoy the old ones. They're pretty neat.
What about the video games? Have you been playing any Star Wars video games?
Yeah, I was on Rogue One, or not. Battlefront. I mean, Star Wars Battlefront. I was on that for a good bit. That was a pretty neat game. I was disappointed they didn't make a story mode. I would highly enjoy that. But The Force Unleashed was a great game. I felt like for the 360,
Sure.
both 1 and 2. So I enjoyed playing that. I heard, I'm sure you guys heard of this. I heard they were making a Darth Maul game and it got canceled.
That's right.
And,
yeah.
That stunk. I would enjoy. I saw some beta of that, but yeah, those are probably my favorites. Those two are something recently. that the kind of more recent ones that come out that I'm a fan of.
I know a lot of other drivers like to kill some time playing video games. Most famously, Dale Earnhardt Jr. has always professed his love for gaming. Do you ever get the opportunity to play against your fellow drivers?
A little bit, yeah. Well, we'll play a little bit. They're big into Madden. Dale and like Brad Keselowski and a couple others are big into Madden. I'm not that good at Madden. I'm not a huge football fan, and I just can't really put the time in to be any good at that game. But there's a few others that I'll mess around with. I just got a new game today that me and a couple buddies, Bubba Wallace, buddy of mine, was just over. We were playing it. The new Resident Evil game. It's terrifying. You guys haven't seen
Yes.
it. Yeah. But so that's been my day and evening so far.
And then you wrap it up with us. So I'd say a good job today. A day well done, I mean, this is Daytona week, for crying out loud. We can't be wasting any time.
Exactly. Priorities.
Definitely.
So what about Star Wars Celebration, Ryan? I know that the season is starting, and it's probably not good timing for you, but would you ever consider heading out to one of the big conventions?
I would love to. I would love to head out. It's so hard to get to one with our schedules, and if I could ever make it to one, I'd love to go and see the atmosphere around there. I'm sure it'd be insane, just to kind of be around everybody who highly enjoys it as a fan, and you get to see all the cool things they put up. So I'm still on the lookout for one that I can go to on an off weekend or during the week sometime. That I'll definitely have to keep my eyes out.
Yeah, it's in the middle of April this year, so you'll probably be somewhere bumping and grinding on a short track like at Martinsville or someplace like that, you know, risking your life for entertainment for others while we're just walking around talking about Star Wars the whole time. But hey, man, it's been great talking to you. We're certainly going to be rooting for you this Sunday as you're racing in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, Daytona 500, the biggest race of the year. We're going to be watching you drive that number one Ford Fusion for the Wood Brothers, and hopefully coming across the finish line first. So it's been great to talk to you and hear about your fandom, and maybe we could get caught up again and get your review for The Last Jedi when it comes out in December.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I would. I'd love to come back on and discuss that. So thanks for talking. It's actually my first radio interview that we just talked about Star Wars. That was nice. So hopefully I'll be on again. But thanks, guys, for having me, and have a good one.
Thank you, Ryan. Best of luck with qualifying and the race itself. We'll be watching and rooting for you.
Thank you.